Everyone, and welcome back to the Black Girl Flow podcast. We hope that you guys have all been doing well, eating your fruits and veggies, taking your vitamins, blocking any fuckboys that need to be blocked. Y'all, we are entering a new month. A new month means new energy. And I'm really excited for March because, like I've been telling y'all, like February, January, why did it feel so long? Mm-hmm. Why did it feel like a roller coaster? Why did it feel just like all of the things were happening? So with March comes like nice weather, comes good vibes, and
don't jinx
less.
It now. Don't
less.
Jinx it now.
I don't think I can jinx it because it's like daylight savings, you know,
yeah.
we're getting more hours of sunlight. Like there's no way you can jinx that.
Yeah.
So I'm just feeling like, woo, you know, just like happier and more like got a little pip in my
staying alive.
Yeah. So
yeah,
hope that you guys have all been doing well. Y'all already know what we like to do. We like to jump into our pulse check, which is just our time to ground ourselves and how we've been feeling and doing. So, Lexi, I'm going to kick it off to you.
Yeah, I think I have no expectations for the rest of the year at this point.
Yeah.
Like it has done a new one on your girl. So, yeah, I think I'm excited. I recently have been seeing lots of people get engaged and I think that's just like really fun to see so much. It feels like we're growing up. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Feels like we're growing up. And I've really felt a sense of that recently. So I'm still trying to be like Peter Pan where it's like, no, I'm a young boy. But I feel like it's just a fun season of life. So I don't know if other people are seeing their friends take on like really big life things. But shout out to the folks who are making that next big step.
Yeah, I don't think I've reached that stage just yet. I know
at all.
Coming. I know it's coming, but I'm still like big chilling. Like no one is hitting me up for wedding invitations just yet.
You haven't hit that past 25 threshold. I'm telling you.
Life just changes.
All the TikToks where they say you wake up in your prefrontal cortex is just like, this is what we're doing. It hits you like that. This is literally the Drake and Yachty video.
Oh yeah.
It's like you old. It's like I too was excited when I was young as well.
I know y'all need to look up the Drake and Lil Yachty interview. We've been seeing clips about that on TikTok, and it's just been hilarious watching those two.
I can't take them seriously. I don't watch it because I think they're serious. I watch it as if they're literal comics.
Yeah. Well, I am in the midst of me not planning for wedding season. I think I got creative projects in the mix, and we
oh my gosh, tell
we moving
people.
and shaking. Yeah, I
people.
just relaunched my clothing line, multi-hyphenate as fuck. It's crazy. Yeah. So before I had a clothing line, it was called Pretty Vibes Movement, and I decided to like take a few years off. Actually, I paused it during the pandemic, and I recently relaunched it, but not to be like a clothing line type thing. It's more so just a digital community for creatives to feel grounded in their gifts and feel supported as they're on their journey to creating really dope things. And I'm really excited to form that community and to like be in the relaunching stages of like, oh my gosh, it's here. But I don't know. There's
have to have a whole nother episode on like the relaunch.
Yeah.
What does it mean to relaunch life and ideas and account for your evolution?
Y'all see how she be coming up with episode topics? Like y'all getting the behind the scenes look. But yeah, I'm excited for that. And like I said, like I'm just excited for spring to come because Lord knows I need the sun. I just feel so much better.
We know.
Yeah.
We know.
You can feel it.
Yeah, I think, but that's the season of hibernation for so many people. So
yeah.
Hopefully people are coming out of this winter-ish time with really thoughtful reflections on what they want to grow and cultivate in the next kind of coming months. But this is also a really exciting time for us because springtime also marks a really big accomplishment for us. And sometimes, y'all, we really do have to stop and smell the roses. Okay. Like you have to be intentional sometimes, like put aside time to just celebrate and bask in all the accomplishments of something. And contrary to all the haters out there, y'all, Liv and I have hit our 1-year roommate anniversary.
Like, let's go.
Yeah. And so y'all know we went viral off of one of our TikToks talking about like
living with your roommate for 4 months. Yeah.
We beat all of the
don't be friends with your roommate allegations.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah, don't be roommates with your friends.
And because of all the hot comments we got, we were like, we're not talking about this again until we hit a year.
Yeah.
Which some people might still think is still babyish, but we're giving you all a little bit of an update of our 1 year living together.
Yeah.
And Liv and I hold lots of different relationships with each other, from our friendship to our podcast to our roommateship. So this episode is really highlighting the lessons that we've learned with living with your best friend.
Yeah.
And really, we're using this not just to give y'all, because we know you love the tea, not just giving y'all the tea, but really kind of sharing our recipe of what we've learned, not just about ourselves, but with each other, and kind of our recipe for flow in friendship.
Yeah.
And in roommateship and in partnership. So we hope you all really enjoy this episode as we dive into how it's been impacting us the past year. So we'll kick it off with just, Liv, how has this past year living in Durham been for you?
I feel like I'm not even sure if there's necessarily like a theme, like just one word to describe this transition. But just to lay it all out there, like this was the first time I moved to a new city, like first time living with someone, first time
not being home.
Yeah. Not being home, and also not having a car to travel anywhere, because when I got up to Durham, I had totaled my car in a car accident, like moving up here. And that was just kind of a crazy way to start off the year. And now that it's been a year, I'm just kind of like, I feel like there's just been so much evolution. And I think that Durham holds a special place in my heart. I think I always am talking about how I love being in a city and I love Atlanta. But I just think having the opportunity to share space with you, and then also I recently got a new job that's within walking distance. It just kind of felt like ordained cosmically that like this was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And so I feel good like about the fact that we've made it to a year and nothing like has deterred us from feeling like we can't live together and like and that we have to separate that like relationship. But it's been
a
insane.
Year. I'm gonna ask you to think about like a few words that would describe your year in totality of just like the evolution, because you talk about that, like my life has evolved so much. I've done so much healing. I've really taken big steps in my career, like really invested. You've invested a lot in you. So maybe give people a little bit of a snapshot of just like, what are some of those words that would describe that evolution? Because sometimes it can be rocky and we be coming out with bruises and battered and life just hit us like a pinata, or sometimes we come out like a beautiful butterfly and we're like, haha, MFers.
I would say it was pretty intense at first, and I'm not really sure if intense is the best way to describe it. But when I first moved up to Durham, given the fact that I'd gotten in the car accident, and I was also like at a job that I knew like I didn't really want to be at, so like I kept like fake pumping like I was gonna quit really soon, and I started traveling a lot to kind of escape the problems that I was experiencing, just like in my interpersonal life. And I think that's why I say it was intense at first. But then I think there was also a lot of love and community in being able to put myself out there and be like, okay, I really need to form community here, and I really need to make strides to meet other Black women here. So I'm not like leaning so much on you to be the only source of like companionship and community that I have. So I would say like it's a mix of feeling very intense emotions, yet I think the best metaphor for it is really like caterpillar to butterfly. Because I was just like, in this stage of learning a lot about myself and learning it in front of you, which was very uncomfortable for me. Yeah. Because I was like, I've never had to share space with someone that
Yeah.
like is seeing how
And anybody who has a Capricorn in their life, not to diminish that,
Yeah.
but tends to want to evolve in the quiet, in the dark shadows of themselves, not doing it in front of people.
because it just feels very raw, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
So
Because it is.
Yeah, it's just a very raw process. And I think anyone that's living with your friend like will experience that. But it's just one thing when we're in our early 20s, so much changes
For
all
sure.
the time. Like we get partners, we find new friends, we find new hobbies, we quit our jobs, and we're soul searching a lot. And I think my hesitation and like showcasing that is, I think a lot of what you're saying is you want to do it alone, so it's not like you're growing and learning yourself, so you don't want to show somebody like the process
Yeah.
of it. But anyways,
The process is the best part, everybody.
Yeah.
And everybody who knows me like knows I love
the process.
I love the process. I think it's the greatest gift in life to be a part of people's process. The final product is sure, like it is what it is, but that's where the nitty gritty is. So
But how would you describe your year?
yeah, my year. And it's difficult to say, just think about it in isolation to like myself, just
Yeah.
thinking about it. I really think it is just quite literally growing up. And I think it's been a year of like heavy responsibility. I feel like I've been carrying not only like a wheelbarrow of responsibility, but like your girl's shoulders hurt from
Like-
carrying the team, you
Yeah.
know? So I feel like I have been aged by that responsibility. Just like even in my face, I can feel it of being like, wow, okay, this
Yeah.
has been a long year. So yeah, that's been a lot for me of just, I think I started the year, not this year, last year, or kind of encompassed it, just being like, I need to make space for all that responsibility.
Yeah.
And just the reality of the bubble being burst when people older talk about you can only really have either a really successful social life and or really in a really successful career or a really successful like community, like you really can't have all of it. And I'm like optimistically delusional to the fact that I really think everybody can win and everybody can have everything that they want. And I'm like, I see.
Yeah.
Something's always going to suffer. So I've been just managing through that personally in my life, and like professional and personal and relationships and all that. My life just tripled like threefold very quickly.
Yeah, it's been insane. And I think that, we have these 3 tips for
3
successes, should we say, for how we've been able to navigate this time period in our life. And I think that just laying it out will also help build context for anyone else that is maybe thinking of living with their friend or hesitant or, just maybe you're already in the process. But
Yeah.
getting into the first thing, I would say that one thing that's really helped us is the amount of love that we have for one another and being able to like see each other for who we are. Like we have always come to each other and been like, okay, if we're going to do this, like we have to give ourselves grace and we have to be able to just like always come back to the root of we love each other. We're here to support each other.
Yeah.
Even beyond podcast things.
Yeah.
Like,
because we've always been transparent of like, we did not think this was going to be easy. And it's funny that you're like, oh, cosmically, I'm supposed to be here. And Liv hates when I do this, but I really campaigned for you to be here.
Yeah.
Like this was not your idea.
right.
Like convincing you to come up. And I remember when you were thinking about maybe getting a place in Atlanta, and I was like, be so for real right now. Cause like, I'm for real. Are you coming or are you not coming? You remember?
Yeah.
And so to see how cosmic it really has been of just an idea is crazy. And we never planned to live together for a year. This was not a part. So we are in uncharted territory.
No, ma'am.
And it isn't easy. It isn't easy at times.
Yeah.
And I do love that because love is at the center of this, and some might say like you have to lean into that unconditional love with each other. I think the way that materializes for people who might be like, that's too mushy gushy, because we're not just over here, loving on each other, kissing, two best friends and they might kiss, like not that. For us, it really is giving the benefit of the doubt. Like, we know why we're here together and what we're trying to build, not just in our friendship, but in the podcast and so many things, that our love and our commitment to each other and seeing the best of intentions is how we do that and how we invest in that. And it's the thing that breaks through all of our differences, because it's what we've mutually agreed is what we want to be at the center of everything that we do.
Yeah. I like to think of our relationship sometimes as like a married couple, but it like also sometimes gives very like big sister, little sister energy. And sometimes it just gives off friend energy. But like in each of those scenarios, it's the amount of love and like the amount of care to make it work.
Exactly.
So
that's one. That's like the core of everything.
Yeah.
The second thing that we think has been some of our success in this navigating this past year has been our radical empathy for each other.
Yeah.
Because you just heard a little bit about how our years have been for each other personally, not accounting for each other.
Yeah.
But that sounds like a whole lot for two people to be navigating. And so it's been imperative that we empathize with each other, that there's life happening in tandem to us living together.
Yeah, it's again kind of having to check in with one another and be like, yo, like, are you good? And Lexi's had plenty of those conversations, like where she's been initiating that and being like, yo, like, where are we at with this? Like, where are we at with the podcast? And I think lately we've talked, I think, about it more than maybe we've ever talked about it, because of the fact that, we joke around, we're like, yeah, we hold 3 different layers to our relationship, but sometimes it just takes specific scenarios for it to all clash and collide. Yes. For us to be like, oh, wow, wait, like, I didn't realize how much of how much these layers impact the way that we're able to show up, because one person might have podcast things to talk about, but then another person has to talk about friendship, or another person has to talk about roommate responsibilities, and another person wants to talk about like friendship. And it's like, okay, well, I know you wanted to talk about this, but like, can I also slide this in there? And that's probably like one of the toughest parts to it.
And when we were reflecting on this kind of personally and then together, we were like, is it radical honesty or is it radical empathy? And it's funny because a couple of days ago, we were all talking with a group of friends about, in a relationship, like romantic, do you tell everybody everything? And we were like, the conclusion was like, no, with some caveats. Right. And I think it's the same thing where it's like, no, we're not radically honest with each other. Right. And an example of that, and then we saw that it actually might be empathy. Can I tell the story about the...
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Before the holidays last year, which Liv spent a lot of time in Atlanta, right before that, just kind of your job was getting taxing, and like your relationship with social media was kind of
in the gutter.
Thank you.
I didn't want to be seen on social media.
And so for the podcast responsibility, she just kind of straight up to me was like, I don't want to do anything on social. Like, I don't want to do TikTok.
And that's my role.
Yeah, that's that's her responsibilities that we've decided. And she's like, I'm just not going to do it. And so when we were talking about the story, I was like, if I was honest, I would have cussed her out, being like, girl, what are you talking about? But the radical empathy was that my response was, okay, let's find like a middle ground, and like, can you help me still support this moving forward? And that creating space, knowing that there were so many other things going on, like you're talking about the different pieces that collide sometimes, creating that radical empathy and recognizing that at the core of this, it really didn't matter about TikTok, it more mattered about her having space to like evolve that or heal that relationship with social media was going to be more important. And then she comes back in the new year and she's like, I'm ready. Like, I'm ready to take that back on. Yeah. And I'm like, I do have a few questions about it. I feel like that's an example of how for us, the radical empathy helps us best support each other.
Yeah. And I think that goes to show that like, Sometimes it's going to be 70-30. Sometimes it's going to be 60-40. That's why I look at it as like a marriage sometimes, because I'm just like, we out here having to come. And I can also give y'all another scenario that like we needed to practice radical empathy. We were, in the beginning, I've talked about this on the podcast. It was really tough being around Lexi and her boyfriend, because I felt like there was a lot of PDA, and it was like I was the single person and they were just mushy gushy like lover people. And how I guess I would like retaliate, or I'm not sure if I would I mean I'm not sure if retaliate is the the way that it's not even vocalizing concerns, but like vocalize my
passive
angst
aggressive
around it, was that I would record them and I would send it to our friends being like, guys, look at what I have to deal with. Like I would expose. And usually when I brought my camera out, they'd chill out a little bit, and that was like my way of being like, okay. But it took me talking about it in New York with some more friends of ours about it, where Lexi was like, yo, this just like isn't cool. Like the fact that you're bringing up the situation and like
making me defend
making me defend. Yeah, it's like, it's one thing for you to have a problem with this and like we can talk through that, but like don't try to bring our friends into it and be like, ha ha ha, you know, like trying to get them to corral with me on the level of PDA. And I recognize that. So it's like those situations where you have to call your friend. And because again, that could have ended in a different situation where it's like, bitch, don't put my shit out on blast like that. Yeah. Like, don't, like, this isn't fucking, like, it could escalate.
Yeah.
And same thing for me. Like, I could be like, bro, like, I could have said some things too.
For sure. And I think people probably have a visceral reaction of like, I would never. But we have to go back to like Liv and I at the core of this is giving each other the benefit. I'd be like, my intention is not to make Liv uncomfortable, and Liv's intention is not to make me uncomfortable. Like, we have to call each other in to find that middle ground.
Yeah. And I think the key to that piece again is when we bring something to each other's attention, does the behavior change afterwards?
Exactly.
And each time the behavior has changed, it hasn't been like I'll keep that in mind for the future, and then we're going back to the same thing. Because I think that's also how like that resentment piece builds up. Like, you have to be true to your values as friends, and making sure that when your friend comes to you and is vulnerable enough to share how they feel, that you respect that and that you move forward.
And I think that brings us to our third success piece that we've reflected on, that we respect and invest in each other's individual evolution and like make space for our evolution as a collective, because like you're saying, it also requires both of us to be very secure individuals in who we are. Yeah. And like you're saying, like, people could pop off, and insecure people could pop off, or anxious attachment styles can pop off. And so it's important that we both are evolving as individuals, and we're making space for that evolution and change within our friendship. That I don't have the expectation that Livia, even though she came in at this age under this circumstance, she's not that person anymore. Yeah. Like, she is who she is, and the beautiful both and she's grown so much. And so we're not afraid to see that individual evolution and make space for how that impacts our friendship and grow with that. And I think that's kind of, if we start with love and then we see this radical empathy holding around it, then the thing that's really kind of grows it is that water, is that we're really investing in each other being the best version of each other. Yeah. And that we know that that's going to positively impact the friendship.
Yeah. Looking at each other with fresh eyes, and also having to make changes in the way that we show up for one another. Like, when we first moved in together, it was like I had expectations that we would be doing more like roommate things together. And Lexi was, you know, like still like, I don't want to say battling, but like you know, juggling. She was juggling a lot of different like concepts and things going on in her life as well. And so it's like we've had to come together and be like, all right, we need friendship dates so that we can spend time with one another, because how our relationship was before, where I would drive up to see you and you'd fly down to see me, and we would just have that time to spend with each other, that's just not the way that our life looks anymore. So we have to like scrap that and create a new way of being able to be friends and show up for one another.
I'm so glad we have the structure for this episode because I really could just gush about us. Like, we're so cute. Look at us flying for each other and all this stuff. And Liv's right. I was not only like moved into my first house by myself, but like navigating a new relationship that's very long-term and serious. And then had just come out of like a seriously toxic roommate-ship. Like, I was going through it. And Liv's like, let's hang out. And I'm like, ah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we made space for that. So it's been a beautiful culmination. And I feel really blessed to have those success pieces to come back and be like, wow, even though it's not always easy, like we've really committed to this, and there's some beautiful life lessons. And I told you it's been really healing for me to have such a positive roommateship because I knew it was possible. Yeah. And I just knew it was going to be with you. Like, she's one of the few friends. I think you were the only friend that I
hadn't lived with yet.
Yeah. So that's been really great. But with those successes comes still its challenges, and we want to keep it a buck with y'all.
That's so funny. Maybe we should have put the challenges before the successes so y'all could really hear it. We could end on a positive note.
No, we put it at the end so that if we were crammed for time, we could just
right, exactly.
Y'all don't need the tea. But I feel like,
should I kick it off?
Yeah,
Let's get into it. Let's get into it. So, like, I think one thing that I continuously struggle with, and me and Lexi actually had to have a conversation this morning about this as well, was that my communication with her is just like, I always feel like I'm on ice and like the ice is gonna break, and it can be really challenging for me to feel like comfortable in bringing up how I feel, because I either think that she's going to judge me for thinking how I think, she's going to perceive me differently, or it's like I think I'm afraid of the reaction that she'll give me, and that I think has led us to I think conversations and spaces where you've had to be like, yo, like, why do you
I'm a person
feel this way? Why do you feel this way? And like, why do you feel scared of me? But that's like a real thing, because I treat all of the layers of our relationship with a lot of delicacy, and I don't want to cause any issues with the way. So it can be really tough, because it's like, oh, I've got these good things going, but like, I don't want to ruin the vibe.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a tough place, because for me, I'm like, I want to be able to bridge and open up those conversations. And when I do, it's often like, oh yeah, like I perceived or thought that might be the case. And I'm like, well, why didn't you talk to me about it? And it's like, oh, like you give big dog energy. Like you might bark back. And I'm like, when it like really look at, and I think this is an example of sometimes like the stories we tell ourselves can change the way we interact, where I'm like, no, like think about the rap sheet. Like I might have barked a couple of times, but like no bites.
I think honestly what was big for me even this morning was you being like, you don't think I have unconditional love for you. That honestly hit me a lot. Like that hit me so deep.
Yeah, she thinks I'm gonna
that hit me so deep.
And it comes from a genuine place, because I often talk about people being liabilities, and that if I get a sense of somebody that they can't be held responsible or accountable for their actions, like they turn to liabilities in my life. And I'm like, girl, you passed that trial period like ages ago. Like you an OG now. Like that doesn't apply to you. So, calling each other in is another example of that. But our communication and making space, this isn't just like, oh, can I talk to this person? It's like the way you're talking and the consistency and the substance of what we're talking about. And, we're still growing and unpacking what that means for both of us, and how we can craft together the best way that we can show up and communicate effectively with each other.
Yeah.
No harsh words have been thrown yet. So, and I think this and this has been great, because this has really moved us from just flaming each other as kind of like a middle ground to like really getting to the nitty gritty, which Liv this morning was saying how there's a depth to our relationship and our roommateship and our friendship now that we didn't have historically. And I would say like that's actually been one of the best gifts that we have.
Exactly.
I'll say for me, the communication piece and challenge is that Liv is a very vibesy person as the artiste and creative that she is. So even if I have like an issue or something to bring up or talk about, I'm often very just keen to, I'm like, okay, like I know the type of day she had, or if she's in a creative slump or something like that is going to impact her reaction to when I bring something up. So even though my issue might be very stagnant, I have to, if I come home and I'm like ready to talk about something, but she's obviously like sulking on the couch, and like, I'll try again in 24 hours.
Yeah.
So just being mindful, because I'm pretty much like, even if I have a bad day, you can talk to me about something.
Yeah, you're good with that.
Yeah.
I think those are our challenges, and I think we're still figuring out ways to like navigate those things. I mean, 1 year, so much has oh my God, so much has happened. And I am just really grateful that we get to do life together and that we get to come together and have this space with one another.
Yeah.
And I mean, if y'all are interested in hearing more about like behind the scenes stuff, please let us
careful
know.
They gonna make us start vlogging our whole entire life.
Hey, good morning, sunshine. Lexi's not the type to want to talk in the morning. That's one thing.
If that's really what y'all want, of like the tease of our personalities, then we can definitely highlight content. But I was gonna say the same thing, if I would be remiss to not like genuinely give you so much just like thanks and gratitude for being who you are and taking this risk with me.
Taking the risk for big rewards. Hey. Well, that's all that we have for you today, folks. We hope that you are all doing well, and we can't wait to see you guys next time. Peace, blessings. Bye, guys.
Bye, y'all. All right, that wraps up our episode this week.
We'd really appreciate if y'all could rate us on Apple and Spotify, as it really helps grow our BGF tribe and support our podcast.
As always, the conversation continues on Instagram and TikTok, so connect with us there if you want to join in on all the keys.
With that said, we will see y'all next time.
Rest well, folks.